All right, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'd talk to you about the progressive era notes that will be kind of split up and pushed to you on this Ed puzzle and into your chapter 21 reading in AMSCO. This also that's the smaller book. In the big book, this is chapters 28 and 29, but again with ACT this week. And the stress of that, stick to the small chapter for sure on this and this video. Just to lead off, how can you not start off with this photo right here? Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. And look at these outstanding, outstanding American citizens here standing up. And again, there's a word for this, obviously the Prohibition Amendment, but the temperance. Make sure you understand that word temperance. That is going against liquor as well. Temperance movement stuff right there. That's from your wonderful, wonderful, wonderful deal that we've got right here. Looking into chapter 28 as we take a gander here. The progressive movement is exactly the same stuff that you are seeing potentially some movement on the gun issue in America as the gun control advocates and the gun rights advocates kind of face off here to see if we need to change legislation on a range of factors, whether it's bump stock, whether it's assault rifles, whether it's background checks, whatever it might be, purchase age, all sorts of things. We'll see. And we've seen people rise up. We've seen the people marching out. This is a very, 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 very similar situation that we'd compare back to the progressive movement on various issues. You again, also to talk to you about this, the video we saw in class that had the women's workers that were on strike for better working conditions. And then you saw the horrible, horrible Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire and the atrocities there. And then after that atrocity, the massive, massive amount of changes that you start to see almost immediately once the public was outraged enough. Sometimes you need public outrage to see things. And people that were in charge of, not in charge, but tried to bring things to the surface generally were journalists or photographers, and they were called muckrakers. Muckrakers. We got a picture, I think, of Teddy Roosevelt over here, kind of raking through some mud. Yep, right here. There he is, as they go into the innards of society, the places where it stinks, literally and figuratively, and they bring it to the surface so everybody can see the bad things that are happening. They're called muckrakers. That's a term to definitely know. And the progressive movement is going to grow after the massive growth, after the industrialization, urbanization, and all the immigration here. We grew arguably maybe too fast. And it's also a rejection of that laissez-faire ideology where the government is going to take a hands-on approach on a number of different issues. And you'll meet about 20 different reformers during our speed dating Monday when we get back from this weekend here. Or if you're viewing this video, you'll meet them. You already have met them. Sorry for the stumble there. Again, muckrakers are going to attempt to solve some of the problems in American society. TR names them after reading a book on the meat industry, and we'll get to that later here. Some people that you'll meet on Monday or did meet on Monday that are going to bring a number of things to the issues here. One person, Ida Tarbell, is going to try and take down the Standard Oil Company. The dealings of John D. Rockefeller are going to be exposed for people to see his tactics, his cutthroat tactics to stay on top and to drive people out of business. Jacob Riis is going to use his camera, and he's going to go into these dumbbell tenements, into the slums of the city, and show rich America, to show white middle-class moms and dads, but mostly showing the moms and trying to get the outrage from the women here to try and make change, make these areas more hospitable, try and get more buildings here, better ventilation, better living conditions per se, to fix society here. That whole wordology or phrase here of a picture is worth 1,000 words, Jacob Riis is that evidence there. Lincoln Steffens here is also going to talk about New York City boss politics, the whole history of Boss Tweed and what we know about him now. That is headlined in Lincoln Steffens' Shame of the Cities. AP College Board loves to use Lincoln Steffens stuff as evidence. The muckraker term is going to be from Upton Sinclair. He writes a book about the Chicago meatpacking industry. And Upton Sinclair actually goes into a Chicago meatpacking plant to work, but mostly to get evidence, to write down in his journal that night what he witnessed. And what he witnessed was all that and more. People losing fingers, people on the assembly line here that as the meat grinder, they'll get your hand stuck in, they'll lose fingernails, fingers, the lack of sanitation in the bathrooms, the sneezing into your hand and then making your food. Any gross thing you can think of, whether, oops, a rat got into the food, we're still going to chop it up, we're going to process it and sell it, you name it, he witnesses it and he puts it in his book, The Jungle. TR, who loved his good old Denny's sort of grand slam breakfast of sausage, bacon, all of that, he is going to swear off his breakfast, his meaty breakfast, until he knows that the stuff he's putting into his body comes through some sort of meat inspection so that it's clean. As far as the progressive movement in this slide here, as we look at some of Florence Kelly's work, you saw this in our video from this past week when you'll meet Florence Kelly during our speed dating deal. She's going to work a lot in the aftermath and build-up of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire for kids and women workers. In addition to that urban reform, we look at Jane Addams, that Hull House mentality of trying to get people ready for work. Her and Florence Kelly again, for the settlement houses and to try and get it easier to live. Try to bring down prices that the utilities are charging here to actually bring the living conditions to have it be manageable, to be able to afford to live as they go after some of the public utilities and try to get them more affordable. This guy right here, Robert La Follette, not La Follette from American Revolution that Hamilton sings about, but this is La Follette High School, Madison La Follette in Wisconsin here. This guy was our governor. He was later on a senator from Wisconsin. He even ran for president in the third party here as well. So Robert La Follette is one of the lead progressives of the day. And he's going to coin what's called the Wisconsin idea. We still claim to have it here today. But the Wisconsin idea was the forward thinking of our state. We didn't want to be falling behind other states with new ways of doing things, whether this is for education or anything. He wanted to make sure that we were ahead of the game. So for a long part of Wisconsin history, we're known as a very progressive, forward-thinking, not a backward-thinking state at all. He's going to go after public utilities. He wants to look after the small guy with the railroad industry. He's going to reform tax codes here and try and reform politics in a number of different areas here. And this is done around the states, but again, the Wisconsin idea tries to say maybe people should actually vote in secret. Maybe when they go vote, we shouldn't have somebody breathing down their neck, intimidating them on how to vote. We should also have a direct primary where we get to look at the candidates that want to run, and maybe we can narrow down the process of who's going to represent certain political parties. And then recall. Let's be able to hold politicians accountable. If we don't think they're doing the job that they said that they would, maybe they're doing something illegal or they really pulled a fast one on the voters, can we recall? Can we have a do-over election to see if that person would win? Also, let's make it more readily available that people can contact their representative. We have a representative democracy already. It's called initiative. How can we look into contacting our legislators to get ideas for laws? And then lastly, a referendum. Voters should be able to directly vote on a law, especially if it raises their taxes. We know all about referendums in Milton, Wisconsin. The other deal here, we get a 17th Amendment, that we actually have people elect their senators. A lot of these ideas are directly things that the Populist Party wanted about 20 years before that. The temperance movement, getting rid of the liquor. It's the 18th Amendment. That term wet is if you are against prohibition, and if you're dry, the supporters of prohibition here. All right, so the little division here. And you still see wet and dry counties in America today. So Temperance Union here, the Anti-Saloon League, later on the 18th Amendment. More on this one when we get into the 20s. The first progressive president that we have is Teddy Roosevelt. He's going to do a number of things here, but we know the 3 C's, or the square deal. Get out of the monopolies of corporations. Let's go on the side of protecting consumers, and let's also conserve our wildlife. He's going to try and bust up trusts. That's why he's pictured with his club as well. It was also his big stick diplomacy, but they drew it into cartoons for busting up trusts as well. For consumer protection, again, after Sinclair's The Jungle, he wants to make sure that our food is clean, especially the Meat Inspection Act, and the Pure Food and Drug Act as well, to make sure that the stuff that we are ingesting and putting in our bodies is not going to kill us. All right? As we move on here, I know I'm going quick, but I don't want my YouTube video to get too long here. The conservation deal here will meet with the not the conservatives, but the conservationists here on Monday as well. The Sierra Club is formed. We'll look at the Forest Act here as well as we look at a number of different things. But conservation, big thing by Roosevelt. Avid hunter, wants to preserve our parks as well. And there he is, I believe, with John Muir as well out in 1892 there. Another progressive president, Mr. William Howard Taft, is going to be the predecessor of TR. He's going to break up actually more trusts than Roosevelt, even though Roosevelt's known more as a trust buster. He's going to continue a lot of the policies of good old TR. He's also going to bring about his dollar diplomacy to invest in other nations here. That's less progressive and more imperialist policy. TR is going to be frustrated with him, though. He feels that he could have done more or didn't do what he was billed for. So TR is going to run as a third-party candidate in 1912, again, for his third term. But since they both were Republicans at the time, they'll split each other's vote, and we're going to see TR use his strength here, but not for good here, because the Republicans will lose that election, and we'll see in that election good old Woodrow Wilson will run in and win this because those Republicans split each other's votes, even though TR ran as progressive, and we've got a Democrat in office with Woodrow Wilson. A lot of the amendments are going to be passed under Woodrow Wilson, whether it's the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th Amendment under his administrations there. Does a number of things for tariffs, trusts, and bank reforms as well. Some of the things during the progressive movement that were ignored, African Americans are largely ignored. There aren't a lot of things done for African Americans, even though we saw Du Bois, we saw Booker T. Washington, a number of things here. But we've got a lot of work to do when we look at the separate but equal from Plessy versus Ferguson. We'll meet Booker T. Washington on Monday here as we look at them here. In a nutshell, Booker T. Washington is about, hey, let's get some job skills. Let's get some skills so that you can slowly and over time here show your worth in society here. And W.E.B. Du Bois is going to be saying, hey, we need more immediate acceptance, here for the social mobility, as opposed to more over time here by a conservative approach of Booker T. Washington. And again, you'll meet Ida B. Wells on Monday as well, as she advocates about the anti-lynching campaigns in America. And then, ladies, Alice Paul and friends will meet here on Monday. We had some states that allowed the right to vote, but not at the federal level. And with this, we see a group of young people. Isn't that amazing? We see that today, too. Some young people leading the cause here. And you'll see them actually even during the war, even during Dub Dub 1, when they're not supposed to be speaking ill of their government, protesting outside the White House. That takes some amazing, amazing courage to protest outside the White House during a war when many moms, sons or husbands were away at war. Some people thought these women were selfish. Most people thought they were brave. And obviously, we see the 19th Amendment passed as well. With that, I went very quick. I really would push you into said reading in chapter 21. It's a quick read. It's going to give you a lot of the information that you need in a very efficient manner. Download it from your Schoology. Peace.